How many of you had a great experience checking into this amazing resort? I've stayed here many times, spoken here many times. Awesome. So I stood in line. 10 minutes later, I come up to the counter. I say to the guy, I'm here to check in. I looked on his name tag. Alan. He says, what's your name? I said, Dan Clark. He looks it up. He said, do you have a photo ID and a credit card? I said, yeah, but usually as a professional speaker, I'm always on the master account. They always pick up my room and tax, and I'm responsible for my amenities, my ancillary bill, if there is one. He said, no, you're not on the master list. I said, did you even look? He says, it's not here on the computer. No, give me your credit card. I said, well, I am oftentimes double billed, so anything you could do to check it out? He says, no, give me your credit card. I said, cool. He runs my Visa. And loudly enough for everybody behind me to hear, he goes, Mr. Clark, it declined. Now, I'm your speaker. And whoever in here heard that is probably thinking, man, why'd they bring in this bum? I said, I know there's a lot of money in that account. It didn't decline. He goes, yeah, it declined. You have another credit card? I said, yeah, here's an American Express Platinum. It has no limit. He puts it in his machine. Mr. Clark, it declined too. Loud. I'm cringing, kind of looking around like, oh. I said, well, is there any hope I can get a king-size bed? He goes, nope, we don't have any ready until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, well, I'm the speaker. I'm trying to get in. I got to do a little work. Sorry. And we're kind of in a hurry here. Let somebody come up and you just kind of figure out what you have to do. I said, okay, I'm going to go call my office and find out. I go call my office. Just sit on the other side of the lobby. Call my office. Laura, you got to check on something. This is kind of embarrassing. What's going on? She goes, let me call the bank. She calls Chase. Blah, blah, blah. Everything's cool. What's wrong? The bank said it's probably their machine. I'm like, wow, that makes sense. 2 cards, decline machine. How long did that take? 4 minutes? So now I'm sitting there and I'm strategizing. I ain't going to Allen again. And so I find Will, 25 years old. One person in front of me, she gets great customer service. I step up. I said, well, I'd like to check in. He says, what's your name? I said, Dan Clark. He looks on here. He says, well, could I have a photo ID and a credit card? I said, well, I'm supposed to be on the master account. I'm the guest speaker. He says, let me just check for a moment with our person at this hotel who's in charge of this account. He walks away. He comes back 2 minutes later. He says, yes, Mr. Clark, you're on the list. He said, may I take your credit card and just run it for incidentals? And I said, a few minutes ago, I was over here with Alan, and he ran it, and it didn't work. Young 25-year-old Will says, well, it could have been his machine. And he runs my card, and it works. I said, do you happen to have a king-size bed? He says, yeah, right here. It's already listed that you're supposed to have one registered and set aside. Isn't that interesting? I said, Will, who's Alan? He said, he's one of the managers. I said, Will, I'm going to talk about you in my speech in the morning. He goes, well, thank you. He said, but this is my last day working the front desk. I said, by the time I get through sucking up to you, you're going to get a raise. He smiles. That's already going to happen, Mr. Clark. Duh. Because I fly a few 100,000 miles a year on Delta Airlines, I have access to the secret code. I have the 800 number where they're supposed to suck up to me. So that in any crisis situation, I'm supposed to be able to dial and they'll take care of me. I have my flight canceled to Washington Reagan National. I phone up the 800 number. I tell them exactly what's happened. I've never missed a speech since 1982. I don't know if I'm a great speaker, but at least I'm going to show up. So I scramble. I get on the phone. This is what I need you to do. The lady on the phone says, I'm sorry, Mr. Clark, I cannot do that. In years past, we all think we're charming. We can use our persuasive skills and talk them out of it. No one's ever changed their mind because of me. So after all these years, I finally decided it's a waste of time. I just hang up. But before I hang up, I said, thank you, ma'am. Can I tell you, may I ask in which call center you're working? She says, yes, Cincinnati. I said, thank you. I dialed up the exact same 800 number as quickly as I could. How many minutes does that take? 1, 2? Different woman answers. I give her the exact same scenario. I ask her to do the exact same thing. With a perceptible accent, she says, oh, yes, Mr. Clark, I can do that. She completes the transaction. I said, do you mind me asking in which call center you're working? She says, India. I said, whoa. And in my mind, the lady in Cincinnati is taking her freedom for granted. She's taking her job for granted. She's taking her opportunity for granted. Are any of you? And the woman in India can actually send her children now with her income to the finest schools in the country and completely change and transform her quality of life because she has a job with Delta Airlines.